All right, all right. Hello, everybody. It is 6 o'clock on the dot. I'm so glad that you all are here. If you're here, if you're coming in, come on in. Hello, welcome to the 8 staples every classroom needs. My name is Anthony Chiles, and I'm here tonight to be able to set up you for success. If you're an educator, if you're a parent, doesn't matter. These are great timeless strategies that we're going to talk about tonight, and we're going to help you get ready for the new school year. So let's first start with what we're talking about tonight, which is again the 8 staples that you need in every classroom. Now, what is a staple? A staple is a simple technique to achieve a positive learning environment. Yes, I'm talking about simple techniques. In the world of education today, it's become more challenging. Teachers, there's a lot on their plates. And so over the last 3 or 4 years, I've compiled over 100 citations. Now, listen, you all, we're going to be talking about research-based techniques. We're not talking about something that's brand new. These are timeless. These are tested. And if you build this framework tonight and show you, we're going to help you to be successful. About 3 or 4 years ago, I created a framework called the MVP Spaces framework. It is mutual, visual, and the physical spaces of a classroom. And they come with 24 staples. So there's 8 in the mutual, 8 in the visual, and 8 in the physical. Let's go right to it, because it helped me to be able to be a better educator. And when I became a better educator, that helped me to with my students. And so this is all again about that framework, building the mutual space, the visual space, and the physical space in the classroom. Listen, you all, it's tough. And if you don't have this framework laid out, so it's going to be consistent and done with consistency, then you're not going to have a great school year. But these things are going to help you to have a great school year. So again, over the last 3 years and 4 years, I've created MVP spaces, the mutual, visual, and the physical spaces, and there's 8 staples in each space. All right, so we're going to talk about the 8 essential ones that I think they're going to help you to be successful. So come along as we get ready to dive into this right here. So we're first going to start with real education. You see here, I have real education in the background. It is the backbone of what I do. I'm a principal. I am a teacher at heart, an educator, an author, and a speaker. And I'm really here to try to help you, again, to be successful. But I really want to drive home the point that everything results in real education. So let's talking about relevance. Listen, how many times have students asked, when we were young, we asked, why do I have to learn this? Right? So it is important for us to make sure that education is relevant for our students, especially in the 21st century. What about empathy? When it comes to being able to help students out, especially that are having challenging moments, we always have to lead with empathy. So some of the things that I'm not adverse to trying other different techniques and things. One of the things that I've really learned out of my plethora of tools is using love and logic. Listen, it's all about building empathy, starting with empathy throughout any situation. What about action? It's the manner or method of performing. So we're going to talk about actually building up that support for our mind, but also for our bodies. You know, when we're in elementary school, we do a lot of movement in order to get stuff to stick for students. But then when we get into middle and high school, a lot of students, they just sit down and they get what they need. Well, we don't want that to happen. We want to be moving. That whole body, whole brain teaching that was really popular about 7 or 8 years ago. Listen, that's still today. It's still important. And the last thing is making sure lifelong learning. We need to make sure that you can learn from life every single day. Everything that you do, everything that you touch is so important. Here's a great story. When I was in the fifth grade, and I was in Charleston, South Carolina at the time. And our class it was a science class. Our class went to Merrill Lynch. We were learning about banking. And did you know when we were on our way to Merrill Lynch, we stopped by a park and I remember drinking out of the water fountain. All right. And my science teacher said, hold on, before you drink out of the water fountain, make sure you wait about 3 or 4 seconds because there's a lot of sediment, all the stuff that's not really good. There's a lot of sediment there. And so if you wait, then all that gunk will get out and then you can, drink the water. I still remember that, you all. And so see, everything in life has a moment of teaching in it. And if we can learn and if we can infuse lifelong learning through our education, then students are going to grow and learn that everything that we do in life is all about learning. So this is the building block of the 8 staples that we're going to talk about. But it first starts with being able to take that survey. So if you go on to realeducators.org/survey, the survey is going to help build a framework for you utilizing those 24 staples. All right. It's going to be the why behind you started teaching and what specific techniques you actually use in your classroom to help you frame the reference for being able to create that positive learning environment. So let's jump right in again. There's 24 staples, but we're going to talk about the 8 essential that you need in order to be successful. And the first thing, there's 5 in the mutual space, there's 1 in the visual space, and 3 in the physical space that we're going to talk about. So let's talk about number 1. Listen, greeting students at the door. And y'all going to say, Mr. Chiles, really? How simple is that? But let me tell you, you all, have you ever gone to McDonald's? Right? You go to McDonald's. Does anybody greet you at the door? No. Right? They don't. What about going to Chick-fil-A? They greet you at the door. They even say hi. And so the first thing, listen, these are simple techniques to achieve a positive learning environment. The first thing I want you to do when you get to day 1 in your classroom, I want you to stand at your door and I want you to smile. You might say, well, that's easy. Everybody does it, but everybody doesn't do that. Imagine your first day of school, a student coming and they see you standing just like this. That's not very welcoming, is it? So we're going to smile because we naturally tend to have a really good connection with somebody that smiles. So rather than going to McDonald's and hearing, hey, what you want? Don't even look at you, right? They're on their phone. What you want? No, we're going to smile. And then you know what we're going to do? We're also going to make eye contact. We're going to make eye contact. Listen, you all, you think it's people do it all the time, but people don't. And it's important for us to smile, have eye contact, because again, go to McDonald's. This is what they're doing. Can I help you? That's not very inviting, right? Go to Chick-fil-A, go to your Starbucks. They look you in the eye, they smile. How can I take your order? Right? And then what they do, I want you to notice something nice about the child. I want you to notice something nice, right? See, look, 80% of your problems, I believe this, 80% of your problems can be handled right at the door. If you have problems with your kids, if the first day of school, if you stand at your door and you connect with that child, you smile, you notice something nice, and you have eye contact, you're going to help that child feel seen, valued, and heard. But it's not important to just do that on day 1, right? I know a lot of us, we stand at our doors day 1, and then come day 14, we're running around trying to get all the stuff ready for class and get it ready for school. We have to be consistent. Staples, simple techniques to achieve a positive learning environment is all about consistency and fidelity. If you do it every single day, you're going to help. And listen, the first thing that you have to do every single day is be the gatekeeper. You are the gatekeeper, and you can automatically tell if a child's having a good day or a bad day, and you can halt it at the door before they get in the classroom. So a lot of this stuff that happens on a day-to-day basis, you are the gatekeeper, and you can stop it and say, hey, hold on, what's going on? Let's get you together before you get in the classroom. Listen, so greeting students at the door is so important. Now, what do I talk about real education? There is a connection. There's a connection to relevance, empathy, action, and lifelong learning. Why do we greet students at the door? The relevance thing is that when you greet them, those students feel heard. They feel heard, seen, and valued, and they respect you, and they'll hopefully respect you to be able to make a good choice when it comes to doing everything in the classroom. What about the empathy? Engaging those students personally allows you to understand their emotions and experiences, right? And again, you can catch that at the door before something goes awry. And again, how are we going to take action? Well, you can quickly identify the students who need help and the ones who don't. Maybe you see some kid like on the 80th day, and they're not their usual self, right? And maybe you're not going to say anything at the door, but privately, I need to go and check in with that kid as everybody's kind of getting together. That's why greeting students at the door is so important. And finally, lifelong learning. Listen, you all, we have those McDonald's experiences, right? And so we say, man, this generation is lost. But you being able to do that every single day, standing at your door, smiling, noticing something nice, and being able to make eye contact is a lifelong learning skill that we want all of our children to have. So this is the reason why the real education connection is so important. Well, you might say, Mr. Childs, I'm a brand new teacher. I don't know how to really do that. I don't know how to set that up. Or I'm a veteran teacher and I just need a little bit of a different way to be able to do that. Listen, you all, I have a map, a roadmap for you to be able to do that. So here we're actually going to give you the setup, the activity, and the closing to be able to do it. So we're going to have you to be able to say, stand at your door, and then you're going to be able to start going through some of these steps to be able to help that child. So there's a quick setup, the activity, and the closing to be able to do it step by step, just in case you need that specific support. So again, greet students at the door. We're going to smile. We're going to make eye contact with students, and we're going to notice something nice. Now, the really cool thing about this is, you all, is that everything that I'm telling you today is all research based. All right. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book at the end, but I literally have over 100 citations. I know you can't probably see this, but there are literally 100 citations that go with every single staple. All right. So these are research-based things. These are things that are going to help you. This is not just something I just pulled out the sky. This is going to help you be successful each and every day. What's the staple number 2 that we're going to talk about? And that is starting each day with a clean slate. Let me say that again. Starting each day with a clean slate. If you don't hear anything other staple that I talk about, they're all good. But starting each day with a clean slate is so important. When we come to the first day of school and you get your kid list and you heard about Anthony from last year, right? That was like a challenging student. We're going to give that student a fresh start. We're not going to come up the first day and be like, you know what, I heard about what you did last year. That's not setting us a positive learning environment. We're going to make sure that we give that student a clean slate. How do you do that? What are some quick tips to be able to do that? Quick staple: forgiveness. Sometimes when students do things to us, we have to learn to forgive them, right? To move those past behaviors, we got to focus on that student's potential. Again, you all, sometimes we feel like the student can just change real quick, but nobody can change like overnight, right? Some things take time. And that's the reason why with consistency and fidelity, things can change. It may not change overnight, but it's important to be able to have a clean slate each and every day. Listen, I remember when I was an assistant principal and we had in-school detention, and we gave the staff like three tickets to be able to use. And I remember a kid that went to class one day. It had an issue the day before, and this was straight at 8 o'clock in the morning. The teacher gave that child the ISD ticket and sent him right on to in-school detention. And the kid was like, "Well, what did I do? Did I do anything?" They was like, "No, this was from yesterday." It's like, okay, well, you didn't even let me know, right? So that was like, how do you got to like change that? We got to change the narrative on that, right? We have to be able to have a clean slate. And some of that is just forgiving that child. What's the next thing? Forget. Now, I'm not talking about forget when a child does, but don't let yesterday's behavior define today's interaction with that child. No, use that information that happened yesterday to make sure that you don't get into a mode of craziness, but make sure that you're giving that student opportunity and that potential. And you got to forget what happened yesterday as it relates to being overly aggressive or being snarky, to be able to not allow that child to have an opportunity to change, right? Let's give that child a space. And so forgetting what happened and allowing that opportunity to take place is really going to make a sense. And then the final thing for this particular staple is to move on method. Now, this is powerful. And I'm going to break this down here in just a second, because we really need actual steps on how to be able to do that. How do I move on when the child is really just ruffle my feathers, right? I need to be able to do that and help myself be able to get on the same page with a child in order to make that happen. But let's break that down for the real education. The relevant part about having a clean slate for that day is that allows the student to focus on the present and make that learning experience more meaningful and engaging. Building that empathy. I talked about utilizing love and logic. Great Terry Alderman, some of these Harry Wong, some of these specific techniques that are essential to building your overall classroom environment, definitely use them. But empathy, giving a student a fresh start, fosters that understanding and helps them feel supported even after mistakes. And don't we all need that from time to time, even as adults? What about that action? Knowing they have an opportunity to improve helps motivate that student. And don't we want to improve motivation? Yeah. But if we give them that ISD ticket the next day and say, go to the in-school detention, I don't want to see you. We messed the opportunity up, right? What about lifelong learning? We model forgiveness and resilience. It teaches that student to value growth and continuous self-improvement. That's the reason why the real education is so important. You might say, well, how do I do that? I need I need to be able to set it up, an activity and a closing. You all got that for you too. So that worksheet will break it down, how to be able to do it so you can do it and do it well. But let's go ahead and really look at what's the move on method. The first thing, and let me pull this up a little bit so you can see it. Oh, hold on. Let me see if I can. Oh, does it do it? Hold on. Let me see. Let's move on a little bit. I want you to look at this. Meet with the student in a conference. Let me pull it back a little bit. Meet with the student in a conference. That's the M. We need to do that. So whether you do that with yourself and the student, or whether you do that with a colleague or the assistant principal or the principal, the first thing is going to meet with the student. The O is open up the conversation and hear the student's point of view. This is critical, you all. A lot of times as adults, we make all the decisions for the students and we don't hear their side. There were times when I was assistant principal, or even now, where a student was saying something, and even though I know they was lying, I listened to what they had to say, because sometimes the kid just wants to be able to say what they have to say. But sometimes when we're in the hustle and bustle and we're in the crack, we want to save face. We say, no, we don't stop talking, right? And we don't let that child talk or say what they need to say. Even if it's just dead wrong, being able to open up and let them hear about what they need in order to be successful is critically important. What about the V? We're going to validate the student's point of view by restating what was said. So what do you mean by that? I'm actually getting these active listening skills that are needed, especially for adults. Because if we open up the conversation, let the student start talking and validate what they're saying, right? Not that it's right or wrong, but you're giving them the opportunity to say, okay, you are listening to me. You're not just telling me to just talk so you can get it out the way so I can get my consequence and get on out the door. We're actually trying to build some support for that child. Look, E is explain anything that is confusing or unclear. Because a lot of times you all, our expectations are all the way up here, and the student may not have an understanding of how to be able to do that step by step. I see this time and time again, especially in my 20 years of education, especially for students that have ADHD, who need constant reminders. And then some as educators, we'll say, well, they should know what to do. Well, hold on now. We already know that if a student has ADHD or just ADD in general, or some deficit problems, then we're going to have to break things down and be able to give them what they need step by step, right? So by being able to do that is going to be helpful. We can't just assume that if we say, especially for a child with ADHD, I want you to sit down, get your book out, open to page 13, make sure you highlight line 3 and 4, and then after you get done with that, put your book bag back in the cupboard and then line up. Like, how many of y'all remember that? Like, I'm not going to even remember that, right? But so a student that has some executive functioning, Ms. Fires, is going to be like, hey, that's too much, right? Let's keep moving. Then the O is offer concrete steps to meet those expectations. So now I'm going to have a clear understanding of what I need to do in order to meet those expectations from you as the teacher. And then finally, nurture that student and teacher relationship, you all, is critical. If we move on and we utilize this particular strategy, it's going to help you to have a wonderful class and a wonderful year, because even the most challenging students, you're going to be able to have a clear pathway for success. All right. So that's starting each day with a clean slate. Forgive, forget, and then use that move on to support that student in their success. The next one is modeling expectations. Yo, I love the picture here. It says, do as I say, not as I do, right? Because sometimes we tell students, you need to be ready, and then we ain't ready, right? So that's that on the 38th day of school, when we running in on 2 wheels and we got our coffee in our hand and we're not standing at the door, ready to get kids. And then that child doesn't have his pencil ready, and you berate them for that. Y'all, come on. We can do better, right? But just remember, all of us are humans. We all have that that need to be able to be retold stuff, and we need to be able to do that. And so the first thing I want you to do is you have to have clear expectations. Students must know exactly what's expected before being held accountable. Let me say that again. Students must know exactly what is expected before being held accountable for whatever that you have. Okay. So they got to be clear. They have to be clear. And one of the staples we're going to talk about how to create those expectations with students, especially at the beginning of the year. The next thing is have consistent expectations. So consistency builds trust, and those expectations should be done day one. So if you don't allow gum in your classroom, if you don't allow students to complete homework after the bell rings, you got to be consistent with it every single day. You all, I've seen so many educators in 20 years say, these kids are just out of control. And I've seen inconsistency of approaches to the expectations. Again, listen, think about as a football team. Listen, a football team, I like Alabama, so I'm gonna say Roll Tide. I know, UGA, I get it, but listen, Nick Saban, what's so great about Nick Saban? He might have a few trick football plays in his stash, but the most important thing about Nick Saban and his coaching style is that he gets 11 guys out on the field and they execute the simple things that they do highly well. And that's the reason why he's successful, because they basically run the same plays over and over again, right? The same basic S and O's and being able to do out routes and whatnot. It's always consistent. It's done highly consistent and with fidelity. And that's the reason why he's a winning coach. Same thing with Georgia, you all. They run basically the same type of plays. There's a couple of trick plays, but those simple techniques win out each day, every time that's there. So it's important to make sure that everything is consistent. And the last thing is to make sure that the expectations are obtainable. Now, I had a little thing. I was like, shouldn't have put attainable? And I said, no, because obtainable is more accessible. Because you may not ever have a child reach mastery for that particular expectation, right? If they're coming in, at the first in your classroom and they've spent the last 3 months in their house and they're been able to do what they want to do, they've been able to go to the bathroom and not asked to line up and go to lunch and stuff like that. We have to be able to make sure that the expectations we have for those students are done so where they can actually get a hold of those expectations. And so we have to teach it to them. So make sure they're clear, make sure they're consistent, and make sure they're obtainable, and making sure that they can do that each and every time. Now, where's the connection with relevance, empathy, action, and lifelong learning? I'll quickly go through that. But listen, we're demonstrating real-world application to help them to see the importance and the usefulness of what they're learning. Modeling respect and inclusivity helps students develop empathy and to learn how to work with different sets of people as well. And I'll skip action and go right on to lifelong learning. Look, teaching students to ask questions, to analyze information, and doing certain things about modeling helps them be, again, successful. So that is important to be able to make sure that those expectations that you have, look, you expect what you inspect what you expect. It's the other way around. It's important that we do that each and every day. Let's move on to the fourth staple in this series, which is called learning about students' interests and backgrounds. Oh, this is critical, you all. I have seen when dealing with difficult students, I often ask my educators, "Hey, what does this child like to do?" And sometimes they say, "I don't know." Or what's this child's favorite thing? And they say they don't know. And so it's difficult to really see, well, are we dealing with a personality conflict? Are we dealing with something that maybe a child doesn't feel like they're liked in the classroom? And part of that really is being able to know that child, even the most challenging ones. We got to know something that they like and something that they like to do, because that helps us to build a relationship with them. And so how do we really do that? I want you all to start using, if you haven't used, a student interest survey. At the beginning of the year, it's important that it is easy to do. Take a survey of your students, figure out what they like, figure out where they live, figure out what their favorite music is, figure out who the favorite movie is, because these things are great to be able to utilize in the classroom, especially at later times throughout this classroom. Another thing I like to use is doing the 3-2-1 share method. So you can have students at the beginning of the year share 3 relevant experiences that they've had or they want to have, 2 places that they visited, or even one surprise about themselves. And that little simple technique, quick tip, can be done throughout the year, right? Because we can keep it fresh and keep it going. And then last, you can use all of that information to go right into your lessons. Listen, talking about relevance. Why do we have to learn this stuff? You all don't allow that curriculum have some of those things that are infused, especially when you're talking about science. Listen, you're talking about being able to utilize some of the things that are in the classroom. Take some of that stuff that students like, right? If you're going to work on a different project and you have some music in the background, some children like some of the different type of music, put it out there, play it, right? Now, listen, when I was at the high school and I was a band director, one of my classes was music appreciation. Now, what high schooler likes music appreciation, right? It's one thing to have children that want to be in, your band class, but other kids that are in the regular class that just really don't want it. So I remember one of the things that I did every single Friday was we had Name That Tune Friday. And I can remember because back then we didn't have streaming and all that. We had that's what I call music. And I would go and I would do all kind of music. I would do heavy metal. I would do jazz. I would do rock. I mean, any type of thing. But it was interesting. Some of the kids like some heavy metal. I'm talking about like heavy metal, death metal, all they call it, where people are like, oh, and they're like, doing all this right here. That's not something that I like to listen to. But what I found is that, there are some virtuosos with death metal, with heavy rock and roll. These guys are, I'm telling you, are literal geniuses on their musical instruments. The amount of time that they're able to do the things that they do. I mean, the guitarist and then the drummer is like beating real fast, and the coordination of all the stuff. I was like, that's not my kind of music, but I can appreciate the different type of style and the hard work that they put in order to do what they're doing. So it's important, y'all, to infuse some of that stuff in your lessons to make it more relevant. So how does this play in with real education? Well, listen, when you make when you take the time to get those surveys going, then those students are going to learn. They know, man, you can relate to me, teacher, because now I can really see what you're trying to help me to be better and get what I need to get in order to be successful. Look, how do you build empathy? It allows you to understand their students' perspective better. Again, it's not just me sage on the stage, but I really want to know more about my kids, and I'm infusing some of those things into the lessons each and every day. What about action? Knowing the backgrounds, that helps me to identify potential challenges that students have. Maybe somebody on your survey will say, I'm not a great reader. So now I'm not going to call that kid the first time. I might try to give them some extra support and scaffold that learning while I'm teaching them. And that's going to help. And that all comes through knowing who that child is with that interest and that background. And finally, when students see themselves reflected in the learning experience, they begin to learn, you know what? This is great. And I can continuously learn each and every day. Well, how do you really do it? Again, I have a setup, an activity, and a closing that will help you to be able to break that down and do a good job for that. And if you want, this is, again, all this stuff is here is free. If you go to realeducators.org/student-surveys, I have digital surveys and I have paper surveys that you can print out. All right. So all of that right there, all the surveys that you can think of are free. They're on Google. All right. You just click it and it'll give you a free one. And there's for primary level, there's for upper elementary level, for middle, and for high school students right there. So you don't have to go try to figure out how to make one. It's right there. realeducators.org/student-surveys. They have printable copies and also digital copies for you to be able to use. Yes. All right. So again, learn about student interests and backgrounds, important for you to be able to do that. Let's hit up number 5, which is to give 41 positive versus corrective feedback. Now, out of all of the staples we're talking about today, this is probably the one that's the most difficult. Giving 41 feedback. Now, let's start with the first one, which is awareness. We need to become aware of the number of positive versus, I say, corrective statements that we make. Now, this is difficult because research actually says there should be 7-1. But have you ever been in an atmosphere or in an environment where everything's just negative, right? Where people just constantly just it's negative, 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 and there's nothing ever said that's positive. Well, it's the same thing for our kids. right? There's so much research that supports that those that are in a positive area tend to achieve higher and do better in life in general. So we got to be aware of just being able to know how many times a day do I, do I say, again, corrective, not negative. I'm saying corrective because we want to still be able to focus on what the students should be able to do. But listen, how do we do that? We have to rephrase our commands. So often we'll say, stop running down the hall, right? How do we say, get off your phone, stop doing this, stop doing that. We know what students hear. All they hear is stop. And so being able to rephrase your command to what you actually want them to do is the correct way to do it. And so instead of saying, stop running down the hall, what do you want them to do? We walk in the hall. Hey, Anthony, let's walk in the hall, right? Anthony, let's get our stuff ready. We want to make sure we rephrase our commands to what we want them to do. If we focus on that, that's going to help. And I know somebody's going to tell me, Mr. Child, that's all they hear. That's all I'll respond to. I've heard it you all over the world. I've heard it all over the states. People sometimes say, well, that's the only way they respond to it. Y'all, that's not the truth. We got to change the narrative on that. Again, this is about setting a positive learning environment. And if that's all they ever heard, we're with them for 8 hours a day, or they're with us for 8 hours a day, we can change that narrative. So somebody, one person like Rita, I forgot the lady's last name, said just need one champion, just one champion. And you could be that person that helps change that narrative. The last thing is to increase those positive comments. I want you to start small. I want you to be intentional about how you say what you need to say, right? There's also different strategies about making sure if you have a student that is being disruptive, that you don't necessarily say anything just yet, unless they're doing something really off the wall. But what you do is you say, you know what? I like how Anthony's got his stuff ready. I like how Anthony's lined up. I like how Chris is sitting in his seat. Because you know what students do? I want to be noticed too. I want to be noticed too. And so the student be like, what? So then that student that's acting up, they start getting themselves together because they want to be noticed too, right? So then you just say, all right, Anthony, thank you. I like how you're getting ready together, right? And that makes kids feel good, right? So we want to make sure that we're positive and that we're making sure that those things are positive for our students so that they can be successful. And that's how we do that. Now, what is the real education connection for that? Listen, positive feedback reinforces the behaviors that we want the students to see, right? If you want students to be able to do exactly what you ask them to do, then you have to focus on that, not the negative part. Or I say with the corrective part or what we want them to be able to do. Look, empathy, acknowledging students' effort shows that teachers see their progress and they care about their development. And if it's, instead of just always saying, well, that's just the way that kid is. We want to focus on building that empathy within them in order to be successful. Listen, for the action, giving clear, specific feedback helps students understand what they're doing well and where they need to improve. And that's the reason why I say corrective feedback and not negative, right? You might have to do a corrective feedback. Let's get our stuff together, right? See, that's better. Let's put our stuff away. That's corrective, right? But it's not, put your stuff away. Because sometimes we get upset and get mad when we say stuff, and we got to make sure that we kind of hold our own. We can be assertive. That's a whole nother training, right? But being assertive, but yet not being sarcastic when we do say things to students. Last thing, lifelong learning. Encouraging a growth mindset helps students to develop the resilience, the self-motivation, and desire to improve, right? Don't we want students, we say that the good thing about them building that resilience, we need that resilience. And so it's important that, again, we're tackling that relevance, empathy, action, and lifelong learning with every staple that we encounter. And again, this one's a little bit more difficult. And so we have a setup, an activity, and a closing that will help be able to do it. Because what I would like to do is track. I want to actually, and I started tracking myself. How many times a day do I actually am negative, right? How many times a day do I actually say positive things? And for a minute, it's going to sound interesting. I say interesting. It's going to sound interesting, like, because you're trying to do it, because we're so used to, you all, sometimes we're just so used to just doing corrections all day. And some people will tell me, well, that's because my class is just like that. But again, you have to try to change that narrative. In day one on the 25-26 school year is the most important part that you can do it. I know you can. And so here, giving you some tools and quick tips to be able to do that. So again, giving 4-to-1, 5 corrective versus positive feedback. You want to be aware of using your statements, rephrase those commands, and then increase those positive comments. Let's go to number 6. I love this. This is probably one of the most favorite ones that I like. There's different ones, but favorite, taking active brain breaks. This is incredibly important. And I'm even going against what I know because, I don't know if you're sitting down or if you're just doing whatever you're doing, but taking active brain breaks, you all, is so important, especially in the TikTok, YouTube world that we live in today. It's important. So what are we going to do? We're going to play a movement game. Use interactive games to get students moving and smiling. It's so important, you all, that we move. Again, I talk about whole brain teaching, where I seen where middle schoolers were learning history and they had to turn to their partner and they had to talk about the different atmospheres within the earth, and they were doing all the different things with movement, and they were totally engaged with what they were doing. But we're going to take a brain break. What about, look, take a walk outside. Now, I know some people, I can't do that. But if you can't do it, move around your desk, right? Do some kind of brain break that helps the students be able to get where they need to get. Now, I call this, in another part of some things that I post online, called HIT training. It's highly intentional instructional training. And it's important that we use these brain breaks because I call it hit it and quit it. So what we're going to do, we're going to have 10 to 15 minutes of high intense instruction. And then after that, we're going to take a quick brain break. You have to teach this, you all. I don't say just automatically just go ahead and start day one. You got to start small. Start with 15-second brain break. All right, y'all, I just want you to get up. I want you to stretch. We have this thing called I can call it, it's not brain pop. Man, my brain's I need the brain break. But go noodle. You all, this like move and freeze. Come on, move. Oh, and freeze. So just little things like that, y'all. High schoolers love it, y'all. I don't know how many people tell me every conference I go to or meeting I go to, high school kids still love stickers. High school students still love when you give them stuff. They're a little bit older, but they still like some of the same things that elementary students do as well. I mean, I've seen kids that are like, you want to call hardcore. They're like hardcore, and people call them hardcore, and they run around with a what do you call them, book bags? Man, I can't remember. Back when I was in high school, but not when I was in high school, but back when I was actually doing administration in high school, we had big kids that were like, want to be gangsters and all that stuff like that, run around with a SpongeBob book bag. SpongeBob, you all. So, I mean, when I tell you that these things are funny, it truly is funny. Hold on one second, because I don't want my battery to go down. It is important. Holy moly. All right, I'm back. All right, I'm coming back. All right. I'm just making sure my thing doesn't go down. So we are, that's right, it's part about being live. And I'm building resilience, you all, when we do these things. Look, because nothing is perfect in life, right? We want to make sure that everything is well. And that's helping me move, right? Not stay still. So I'm actually demonstrating taking a brain break with this. And the last thing is, if you can't do anything else, do stationary exercises. Yeah. Again, you can sit there, you can just tell every student, stand up. And I want you to just march in place, right? Because research tells us that when we take a brain break, it helps us refocus our mind, right? We're taking a break to be able to recenter everything that we're doing, and then we're moving back right into instruction. So that's why it's important to do 10 to 15 minutes of instruction and then take a 2-minute brain break, up to 2 minutes. I say up to 2 minutes, and then do another 10 to 15 minutes and then do another brain break. It's hard to sit down for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and hear somebody just yabble off like I'm doing right now, right? We have to be able to take those brain breaks in order to be able to remain focused, retain focus, and make sure that we're attentive throughout the whole entire process. How does this break down with relevance? When students are given the choice of brain break activities, they're more likely to be engaged, you all. And again, I've heard, I can't even get my kids in groups. I can't get my kids on brain breaks because they just go all over the place. That tells me that your setup of how you set it up was not done well, and it wasn't done in a timely fashion to where it's going to be short and where you can get it to the next thing. You have to teach. Everything we do in life is teaching, right? When we don't get it right, we got to teach. So that's When kids fail in reading, we teach them how to read. When children fail in science, we teach them how to do science. But sometimes when students fail with meeting expectations and behavior, we think that's a foreign object. We're going to teach everything that we do in order for them to be successful. So taking active brain breaks, totally important. Play a movement game, take a walk outside if you can. If not, the very least thing you can do is just do some stationary exercises in order for that to make that happen. Number 7, involving students in decision making. You all, this is probably another number one thing that you need to do in order to make sure that your classroom is set up for success in positive terms. And what I want to do, and specifically, especially for our secondary folks, is be able to help set expectations together with students. I've seen so many educators over my time in 20 years of education, I said again, that they have the classroom and they say, this is my classroom and these are my rules and you gonna do them. And if you ain't gonna do them, then you can get out. That's how some people start day one, you all. And that ain't getting it. We have to, so what I say, how to change the narrative, how to create that positive learning environment is have the students create those expectations with you. That's a little bit different, right? But being able to do that, that creates that positive learning atmosphere. Now, let me make this caveat. There are a couple of things that you're going to be, that's non-negotiable, right? And that's okay. Have your non-negotiables, but the other things that you can live with, where everyone is making sure that they are actually going to work together in this environment for the next 180 days, it's important that students learn to do those expectations, and doing them with them is going to help them be successful. All right. What about making sure that you communicate them clearly? Clarify clarify those decisions that the students can do. And again, those that are non-negotiable. So now you have the ability to be able to do a little bit of both. And it's not that this is my classroom. It's my way or the highway. Children ain't built like that. They used to be built like that back in the day, right? But they ain't built like that no more. And we know that. So that's another caveat. I'm not here talking, thinking that this is sugar fairies. We all just dancing around and gonna be kumbaya. You all, we understand that the children that are here now, they're different. There's some of the children in the vernacular that they say they hit different. Okay, so we have to recognize that, and that is okay. But we have to make sure that we're communicating clearly what is something that we can build together and what's something that, hey, this is me, I got it. All right. And again, you're giving them that good balance of what's going on. And then the last thing in that staple is to encourage participation. So make sure that there's input from every child when you're doing that particular activity. Now, what is the relevance, empathy, action, and lifelong learning for setting those expectations with those students? When students are involved in decisions that impact them daily, they see the relevant that their input really matters. And look, when you set expectations, you can go back. Look, I want everybody, when you set up those expectations, I want everybody to sign them. All right. So after you set up 3 to 5 expectations for your classroom, everybody on the back of it or in the front of it, I want y'all to sign it. Even the teacher, because now you're putting that commitment for everybody. And then when somebody breaks it, you're like, hold on, wait. Right? Didn't we all agree? Everybody agreed, right? That we're going to respect everybody. Let's say somebody call somebody out their name. Hold on now. We all agree that we're going to respect everybody. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chiles. I'm sorry. Right? And that may not work like that every time, but you're building buy-in with the students when they know that they have some skin in the game, and everybody's name is right here. We all signed it, y'all. We all committed to this, right? You're building that classroom culture that, again, this is simple, but we're actually making sure that we're doing some things that haven't been done before. What about action? Acting on student input shows that voices matter. And again, sometimes we don't give students time of day to let their voice matter. But doing something simple as this, especially at the beginning of the year, it works wonders. Now, some might be asking, well, what happens if the classroom turns south around November? Restart the class, right? I've been in classrooms where we've reset the whole classroom, right? And we kind of waited until a good time where there was like maybe Thanksgiving break or the hot Christmas holidays, and then just reset, like, you all, look, we had a wild first semester, but we're going to retool this whole thing here. And we went through that setting expectation together again. And it helped to reset the classroom again. Everybody get on the same page with those expectations. They all signed it. And now they're all living by it because, again, we're trying to hold each other accountable. So that's really important for being able to do that. And with lifelong learning, decision making builds critical thinking and collaboration skills that, again, need to happen, especially for our students in the 21st century. So, again, there is a specific setup activity and a closing for that. And you can use that again to be able to, it'll give you like a specific verb words to say and things and how to be able to build that and something like this. So what I would do is first brainstorm with all the students to say something like, hey, you all, this is your classroom. This is our classroom, not your classroom. This is our classroom. Let's build the classroom that we want to be able to see. So everybody brainstorm some expectations that we all should agree on in the classroom. Everybody takes the notes and then you come up with those top 5. And then again, at the end, everybody's going to sign it. And then we're going to start fresh and we're going to have a great time to be able to do that and help that out. So again, you see how involving students in decision making is so critical. And expectation is just one thing, right? Being able to do that throughout the year on certain things, that give and take really helps build that collaboration with the students. And it's not just one-sided. All right, y'all, we got one more left. And this one is keeping all areas of the classroom or the environment clean and organized. It's important that we do that, you all, especially to be able to show that the environment is safe and it's orderly to produce that positive learning environment. So what I want to do as a quick tip is I want you to set up a routine for daily cleaning and organizing. It's important. I remember going to a classroom several years ago, man, and they had papers all over the place. I mean, I had to like almost step over the classroom, to get to different places. And the kid, it was doing something wrong. And I was like, did this class okay? It's like, oh yeah. I know where everything is. This is this. I gotta, grade this. I gotta grade that. I was like, okay. But the classroom wasn't really conducive to, learning and a positive learning experience. Kids had to, walk over different things. And so I could easily see how the classroom not set up right, papers that weren't graded yet, getting lost. And they were, okay, now we're going to blame the student for, not turning it in. We got to be able to have a clean and orderly classroom, and the environment's got to be able to do such. So it's important for us to be able to do that. What's number 2? Maximize that classroom structure. Set up a safe environment in the structure of the classroom is so important. Listen, it's really neat when you can go in and try to move. And this is why I like flexible seating, right? I know this, some people like it, some people don't, but flexible seating is really neat because you can move the classroom and make it conducive to where students can be more collaborative, right? Y'all, if we're trying to build successful 21st century learners, then we have to get students collaborating. We have to get students discussing. And it's not a time where we say, well, they always go off topic or they always go off when we're doing it. You got to teach them how to do it. In everything that we do, we got to teach our students how to be able to do it. And the last thing is to examine the classroom daily for areas that need attention. Again, the classroom environment, that's where the students and you are going to stay 180 days. We want to make sure that everything that is in the classroom is safe and is conducive to learning. I mean, we even get to a point now where what's on the walls? Is the wall still talking after you're done teaching? Now that's powerful, right? So we're not just putting up everything on the walls. Everything on the walls is purposeful. So that every time I look up, I can see real education. I can see my purpose. I can see the vision that I have for myself and for people that I lead. It's because I want everything to be relevant. I want everything to be empathetic, to have action and lifelong learning, because that's the basis of foundation of education. It has to be, especially in the 21st century. So what about that connection? Going real clean. Look, relevant. A clean and organized classroom enhances relevance by providing a comfortable and distraction-free environment. It's not all over the place, right? People can actually walk in the classroom. They can put the book bag down and nobody's going to trip and then fall and then, hurt themselves. We want to make sure that that's good. Keeping the classroom clean and organized promotes empathy by creating a shared space that everyone can respect and appreciate. Look, one of the other staples that I have is give students classroom jobs. Now, I've seen this on Facebook and where I think this is in Japan. They have no janitors. And this is at an elementary school, you all. And you know why? It's because all those students, They're up there cleaning the tables. They're putting stuff in the trash can, and they have taken ownership of their school. They have taken ownership of their school. So giving student a classroom job where everybody feels like they're a part of the classroom and a part of that whole environment, that's going to change the game for you this year. You know why? Because you're building that lifelong learning that is going to foster that student to say, you know what, if I can respect the stuff that's in my classroom, I definitely respect the stuff at home, right? So, I mean, it's important for us to do that each and every day. Providing that clean atmosphere is going to do wonders for our students. And so with this, again, there's a checklist of things that you can just do each and every day that you can say, all right, make sure, all right, I have a clean, my floor is clean, my desks are done, especially in COVID, we had to make sure we were doing extra things to be clean, but it's important to be able to do that. And again, I have a checklist there that you can use in order to make that happen. So there's one more step for you all, and this is the most important one, and that's to take care of yourself. It's so important to take care of yourself, especially as we get ready to get into another school year. I know 2024, 2025 school year may have been more difficult for you than ever, but I know and I believe that this school year is going to be great. But as you have taken time during the summer, rest, get back into it, and we're going to come here refreshed and ready to go. And so the first thing is to sleep 6 to 8 hours a day, if you can, and to try to exercise at least 30 minutes a day. If you walk, if you have some type of outlet that you have, it's important that you do that. You got to take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, there's nobody else that's going to, right? So you have to be able to do that, you all. You have to get to a place that is going to help you. Now, listen, this is a quick story. A couple of weeks ago, I was actually on the beach with my family, and it was a scary moment in my life because my daughter actually went out. The rip current was a little strong, and she went out. And so she started calling my name. And the first thing that it is I started swimming to try to go get her. And as I started going out, the rip current took me out. And so before I could try to turn around and go back, it was too late. And so it took me out. And for somehow the current brought my daughter back, and a bystander actually helped her get back to shore. But I was out too far. I was clamoring for my life. I was trying to stay calm as I could, as I was trying to float. And I remember back when I was in high school, I was in ROTC. I remember some of the floating techniques that they had us to do. As I was trying to stay still and to make sure that I didn't panic, because when you panic, that's when things will break loose. I was getting tired, but I'm telling you, by the grace of God, a tour boat came by, and I yelled and screamed, "Hey, help me, help me." They got a life device, and I got back on to the shore. Y'all, I'm glad to be here. I'm taking care of myself. You might say, well, man, that's wow. But let me tell you something really, really neat about this. When I got back on shore and they took my blood pressure was 120/70. Can you imagine? And I'm telling you, it was just peaceful. But it was something about how I focused in that moment, a scary moment. And I've been through a couple of other things in my life, but I'm telling you, it was something in that moment where I tried to just relax. And because I've been trying to take care of myself, the result of that was, even in that tough, intense situation, y'all, my blood pressure, you would think somebody in that traumatic, your blood pressure would be through the roof. But I'm just sharing that with you to say, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. So the next thing, y'all, drink plenty of water. Anybody at my school that I run, they know I try to be as healthy as I can. I go around, I eat my salad dry, you all. I eat dry salads. I'm telling you, I don't put nothing on it. No Hidden Valley Ranch, nothing. I eat dry salad. But anyway, but drink plenty of water, plenty of fluids, eat healthy foods. You all, there's so much out here now that is out to make our health get bad, but try to make small changes. Listen, if you like those Doritos and those things like that, trade them out for something else. Trade them out for a carrot, or trade them out for some vegetables, because these are the actual nutrients that you need to help make sure you have a good mind, to make sure that everything's flowing right, so that you can help yourself make sure you stay comfortable and stay in the zone that you need to be. Next thing is mindfulness and meditation. Y'all spend a few minutes a day just being in silence. It's hard to do that nowadays, you all. Everybody does this. Look, this is what we're doing every single day. Silence is like, it's not even a thing anymore. Let me just take a moment. That's what I'm talking about. Silence. Sometimes, y'all, silence is the best medicine. You have to be silent. Just get away for a few minutes. If you pray, pray. Or if you just sit down, just be still, so that you can rejuvenate and get get things going again. Reflect on what's going on, right? Because at the end of the day, you'll really feel. I know now that life is precious. Life is precious. So if you don't take care of yourself, who else is going to? That's the truth. You all, so that is it, you all. That is what I'm talking about. Before we go, I want you to, if you want to dive in deeper with these 24 staples, I got this book, you all. I wrote it. It's fresh off the press. It's called The Real Educator's Blueprint: Simple Techniques to Transform Your Classroom and Connect with Every Student. If you go to realeducators.org, you can purchase it. It's only $24.99, and you don't have to. That's fine. Everything that you need is on the website, realeducators.org. It goes through each space. It doesn't give you the specific, some of the workbook stuff that we went over today, but it does give you enough, all of the simple things that we talked about to get you started. But definitely, if you want to dive in, and if you want the resource, this particular 8 staples, then go to realeducators.org/resources. And there's resources again for these 8 essentials, and then one for each space, one for mutual space, visual, and then physical. Again, that comes with each specific staple, how to do it, how to implement it. And again, all that can be found on realeducators.org. I want to thank you all for coming and enjoying joining me with this. I'm looking forward to this great school year. You all, this is awesome time. We're going to be starting to do more of these lives to break down how you could be successful using the real education tools that we have for you, provide you. Again, go to realeducators.org to get more information. And don't forget, definitely purchase your book, because it's going to give you great insight to be able to help you along your way. Have a great afternoon, you all, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.